been 2 months since I ever made this last video, being we rated the worst horror games on Roblox. And now, I think it's time for a part 2. Oh yeah, and please subscribe. I put a lot of work into this video, and I do with all my other ones, and it would be gladly appreciated. So, yeah, let's move on now. Beauty's Vengeance is a game. Is it good? No. We work as investigators, and we're investigating the disappearance of someone. I completely forgot her name. But, yeah, as a whole, I don't really like the concept of these types of games. It's just not for me. You know, guessing through random doors and dying, and you know, you just have to guess and go through with it. It's just an annoying concept, honestly. I also feel like there's some weird things going on with the whole premise of this game, because I don't really like how we have to... It's like most horror games nowadays, they're all just annoying fetch quests. I mean, look for the experience games. Oof, it's a whole different video for itself, but no, most of these most of these games are just fetch quests. You have to find an item to progress, and you have to find more items and more items, and it just keeps on, you know, stacking on top of each other in this endless loop, and it's genuinely so annoying and frustrating to some people like me who genuinely just want to experience the games and record with friends. There's an exception to bad horror games, and with those bad horror games comes exceptions, but I don't really feel like Beauty's Vengeance had a good way of executing it here. I just feel like it was more annoying. Anyways, done with my little segment. Let's actually talk about the main game here, why y'all are actually here. To summarize it, it's weird. I don't really like how the game introduces it to us. It's just like, it's like playing with the weird neighbor's kid. It just genuinely throws us right in there without any good directions or instructions, despite them being at the top of the screen. It's really bad executed, but it had a good idea, if that makes sense. I don't really like the panic hallways, because I feel like it's too early to introduce, first off, an enemy that we had no clue was even here in the house at all. I mean, sure, it could be assumed, but there's no really good introduction for this character. On top of that, finding a key like this inside of a maze is like telling a toddler to turn on a TV. It's not gonna work. Actually, I think I actually overestimated that statement. Anyways, you get my point. I feel like this game had a lot more potential, but it just was poorly executed. But to be fair, this is, I think, a team of one person. So, another thing too that you'll, like, I guess I'll show it now, is that you'll see this later on too when I actually show gameplay of these games, but they don't cutscene save. Or, by that I mean they don't player save data, which basically means whenever my friends enter somewhere without me, it doesn't bring me with them to experience what they're seeing. However, you have no
You're not skibbity
comparison to us. We've got power, we've got Karina. You can't save her, you are lost now, you have no escape. Bro, I can't even see.
What the f-
Because for them, they saw a whole cutscene while I had to sit there eating popcorn. And same thing goes for me and Damien, because me and Damien beat the game while Liam and Aiden were still stuck doing who fucking knows what. It's just really bad. So another thing I'd like to mention that, you know, another games I see horror games struggle on with this is enemies. Because what the fuck is this game? It goes back in this part to fetch quests. We need to find a stove, a kettle, and a lighter. We have to find a stove, kettle, and lighter. And they just put this thing here. And I feel like that's just filler for an enemy because they couldn't think of anything else somehow. Even though there's two main antagonists that started the story that could possibly have been there to try and stop us. Also, last thing, the boss fight for this game is really anticlimactic. Like, she doesn't even fly at you. She just fucking flies around, and you have to throw tridents at that sometimes even fucking hurt you for no reason. It's just overall a really bad thing for a boss fight. So, yeah, I rate this a 2 out of 10. On to the next game. This game was more of a disappointment than Beauty's Vengeance was, surprisingly, and that's because, well, first off, look at the thumbnail, compare this to this, and you can kind of see, like, literally why Beauty's Vengeance is better. It's because the thumbnail actually looks clickable and not an unreadable mess, like some of the other thumbnails on YouTube. Another thing with this too is that the gameplay isn't really that good. The lobby doesn't make me want to do anything. I actually was actually it was actually a false lead-in because I thought it was a Japanese horror game, and you know how I feel about the Japanese horror games. They're really fucking good. And then this just was kind of its downfall from here. Another thing too is that this isn't a fetch quest game, which I'll give it that. It's good. It's at least following the criteria of not being a fetch quest horror game. It's a puzzle game. Like, you have to do one thing, get something, go back to another thing, do something there, and then it's just back and forth. So it's like a fetch quest, but better, if that makes sense. With this, it comes a lot of downsides because this adds a multiplayer feature that most horror games do. They add multiplayer features, but don't really do anything. They don't serve a purpose. There isn't no downside or positive effect that most horror games, good horror games have whenever there's a multiplayer aspect. It's more of just a multiplayer aspect so you can get more players. As for the gameplay itself, it's really bad. Honestly, I don't know where the whole term roses came from. Going through the entire story, and I skipped most of it, going through the whole story, there's no mention of a rose. There's no mention of an antagonist, or there's no mention of anything. It's just random monsters that come out of nowhere, and I think that's why everything is so dislike bomb heavy, is because this game doesn't really have a sense of direction, what it wants the plot to be. At one moment you're in a house, then you're in a cave because of a basement door or something. I think that's what happened. It's a basement door, then you go into a cave, then you go through that cave where you have to go against a monster and collect roses. And again, where does roses come from? I have never seen. I think this is by far the worst horror game I've played on Roblox, which says a lot because it does something correct but then makes it wrong. The plot that does something correct, because this is a really good way to introduce something, and then it kind of goes on the downfall. It's horrible. As for the boss fight itself at the end, where you actually have to go collect all the roses, there's not really much to say about it. It's just more of don't get caught, and if you do, there's loud music that literally pierces your ears, and you can't really turn down the music at all, which I don't really appreciate about the game, because at one moment I'm trying to talk to my friends and communicate with them, then all of a sudden I just hear loud rock, heavy metal just in my ears, and it's just really bad. Overall, final rating for this game, 1 out of 10. Please do better. Overall, that's it. That's all I have to say. I'm not going to show the third game because quite literally, looking back at the footage for the third game, it was so mentally draining and exhausting that I can't really do anything with that footage. If you want the game name, though, it's right here. This is the game name. So, yeah. If I had to rate this game, though, I honestly don't know because looking back over the footage is just unplayable. However, before I end the video, there's one thing I need you to answer. Do you perform this type of content where it's commentary, or do you want us to actually do the gameplay of it? Either way, I'm fine with. This is just something new I'm experimenting with. So, I feel free to leave your comments down below. And looking at the analytics, not most of you stay watching my videos after the intro. So, for the people who stuck around, here's a cookie. And also, let me know in the comments. Please subscribe if you're new here. My name's Whitey. I'll see you next time. Peace.